Hey guys, Michael here doing the first video series of how do I build ... and hopefully this will be going smoothly. This is going to be the first run of the video series and hopefully you guys enjoy it. If you guys haven't checked out the channel update talking about this new video series I'm introducing, definitely go check it out. I should have uploaded this right before uploading this video, so definitely go check that out. If you haven't already, it'll give some more explanation on how I came about starting it and the reasoning behind starting it. So I'm not going to be talking about that here because like I said in that video, it's going to be quite a long video series, so let us jump right into it. So the idea I want to start building around today is Naya heroes. So let's see, how did I come about this? I love the heroic strategy, I love bestow mechanic, and I want to try and make it work in standard. So why Naya? I picked Naya because it gives access to... Honestly, the main reason is I enjoy the pumps from green and white. I think there's a lot of great ones in there. White especially has some nice ones that are very low costing and efficient. And even cards like Launch the Fleet, I think, is a pretty nice addition for a heroic strategy because it's low costing, very quick way to activate heroic, and it can progress your board, especially against like control where they don't have too many blockers. It allows you to get in quite a bit more damage in. What else? Red, especially, the main reason honestly was Boros Charm, because I'm trying to think of cards that work really well in standard, and Boros Charm automatically hits the list in a Naya list, deck list, because of Supreme Verdict, a lot of the removal spells, and we also get access to Brave the Elements if we have a heavy amount of white permanents, I guess you could say, for creature wise. But yeah, I think it's a really solid card. Boros Charm is one of the best charms in standard, I think, mainly for protection from Supreme Verdict, but not only that, it can burn your opponent. And especially with heroic, we're expecting at least a fair amount of large creatures being on the board, or at least I would hope so. So the double strike is another way to activate heroic, as well as possibly just blow out your opponent with a double strike. In addition, red can also give us access to Gorklan Rampager, so similar to how the Brave Naya deck plays, it does give us a one-turn kill potentially, I think, if we want to include Gorklan Rampager. That might come down to just how we refine the deck in the future. What else do I want to add in this deck? I definitely want to add some bestow creatures because I think it's a very strong mechanic in certain decks, and we're already making our creatures big, so making them bigger with bestow creatures is awesome. Plus, it gives us an additional insurance against some removal. So, especially like cards with like Boon Satyr, even if our target creature dies, it still falls off, and we still get a 4/2 creature that we can hopefully build on in the future. I think we can probably just start getting into gathering cards up. So I think I have a general idea of what I want to do now. So this is what I like doing at the start, is just sort of brainstorming a few quick ideas. Don't really need a description. And then just going from there. So I have a general idea now. Let us get into picking out the cards. So the first thing I like to do is just add all the cards, or the majority of cards that I know are going to make the list regardless. And I do like refining later on, so I don't like trying to adjust numbers as I'm going. The reason for that is because trying to do that while trying to figure out cards to add into your deck list, I think it makes it a little bit tougher, and just doing it, going from a very large amount of cards and then refining it later on, I think is a little bit easier than trying to figure out the numbers while you're going on. I mean, of course, there are some cards you can automatically say, well, yeah, I'm not going to be playing 4 of those, or I'm going to be needing more than 1 of those. So you can, in that sense, you can probably just add a certain amount of numbers. But for Boros Charm, I'm pretty sure we're going to be playing 4. Gives us protection from removal, wraths, targets for heroic, and possible burn if we need it. Selesnya Charm, I think we're going to be including that as well. It's just a solid card. I like it in standard, especially because it deals with a lot of troublesome creatures like Desecration Demon and things like that. And any large creature that thinks it wants to try erasing us, we can get rid of it, as well as especially gods like Thassa. We can exile those if they become creatures, on the off chance that happens. What else? Plus, it gives us a creature if we absolutely need to, and it's another pump for our creatures for triggering heroic. Oh, all in all, I like Celestia Charm. Not sure if I'll play 4 of them, but we'll see. Again, we'll do the refining later. What else do we need? I do like enchantments in this type of deck, I think. Reason being is because we're playing at least we're gonna have some protection with Borrow's Charm and things like that. So being able to protect all of our permanents too, I think it makes enchantments a little bit stronger in these types of lists. Majority of our targeting is going to be through instances and sorceries, but I think enchantments can still work. So especially going green-white, I think Unflinching Courage is one of my favorite enchantments in Standard right now, especially with the most recent SCG Open in Knoxville being the red-white burn list taking first place. This is their worst enemy. Unflinching Courage is their worst enemy. Very, very tough for them to deal with, and they have to sideboard and wear and tears after. But even then, we're going to have the jump on them since they don't obviously play 4 copies of it. And being able to race is awesome. It means they're going to have a lot of skull cracks ready in hand, and we're able to trigger heroic with it, essentially turning it into a +3/+3 in trample and lifelink. So that's awesome. It's a little bit on the higher costing side, 3 mana. So I think maybe if we're going to be including some enchantments and auras, especially with Bestow, I think it's a good idea to include Hero of Iroas. I'm typing with one hand, so apologies if it's taking a little bit longer. Hero of Iroas is actually a sweet card to include, because especially if you go like, ooh, that's another thing. Ethereal Armor, if we're including enchantments, especially Bestow creatures, Ethereal Armor works really well, and it's a very low costing enchantment, so we can, especially with Hero of Iroas, you can go turn 2 Hero of Iroas, turn 3 Unflinching Courage, and Ethereal Armor on Hero of Iroas, and that'll make it into like, I don't know, an 8/8 or something like that with Trample and Lifelink and First Strike. That's pretty sweet on turn 3. So that's always a possibility. Let's see what else. I think those are pretty much major staples. It's again, it's really tough to think of everything. If I think too long about certain cards, I'll just pause the video, which I probably will do now, because I don't want to make the video super long. It's already going to be pretty long as it is, so I want to try and minimize that as much as possible. So if I get stuck as well, one thing I like doing is go to gatherer.com, and this is where you can just look through all the lists. So like once I'm done just thinking things off the top of my head. Oh, speaking of which, Banishing Light is one of the good cards from Journey into Nyx that I think is nice to have. Now, there's a couple of choices I could make. I could go Chain to the Rocks, because we are going to Naya. It's really going to depend on how much red I include in the list, though. I know Sacred Foundry is going to be a definite red source we can use Chain to the Rocks on, but I'm not sure how many mountains I'm going to be actually including in the list. Mana Confluence is definitely a thing for this deck, because we are essentially playing a pretty aggressive deck. I could play a little bit. I could include a little bit more utility, make the deck a little bit slower, but we'll see once we're done and refining the deck to a little bit more of the type of strategy we want to do with it. So Chain to the Rocks is definitely a possibility, but Banishing Light at least has the ability to hit Planeswalkers and things like that, which is I think very tough for these kinds of decks to deal with. So I do like Banishing Light a little bit more, and I do believe Banishing Light is an aura, so it works well with Hero of Iroas being able to use 2 mana for it rather than 3 mana. Let's see, Banishing Light. So I think I'm slowing down a little bit off cards off the top of my head. Eidolon of Countless Battles is a definite. I love this card, especially with Hero of Iroas being able to bestow for 3 mana rather than 4 is pretty sweet, and especially with cards like the Ethereal Armor, you can get your guy very, very large very, very quickly. And we are including some enchantments, and it being an enchantment creature, even if we play it as a creature, it works with Ethereal Armor, so that's nice. But I think we'll jump together and start going through some of the other things. Enchantment wise, I think we're pretty decent. I don't think we really need any other enchantments. There are some red enchantments that we could possibly do as heroic activators, like Dragon's Mantle, but I'm not sure if it really fits in this type of deck. I'm not sure if I really want that. And I don't think there are any bestow creatures in red that I really want. They have like Mogus's Warhound is a low costing one, but I'm not sure if I want to make my creatures attack every single turn. So I'm not sure if I want that. I think I do enjoy having a little bit more utility in these types of decks. Brave the Elements is a possibility as well. However, the problem with that is if we are playing with enchantments and bestow creatures, if we happen to have to brave ourselves to protect ourselves from a certain color that shares the color with what we're enchanting with, our enchantments will fall off. So that is a small downside, but we'll maybe including as a 1 or 2 of. It also depends on how many white creatures I plan on playing. I mean, I think the majority are going to be white based, even including cards like Fleece Mainline is a possibility. So Fleece Mainline is actually a pretty decent creature, I think, in these types of lists because of the hexproof, and it's a very efficient creature, being a 3/3 for 2. So that's always good. And the hexproof and indestructibility, if we can get that off, it gives us a really nice target to actually bestow things on and things like that later on in the game. So I like Fleece Mainline in this list. We'll have to test it out. So we'll just jump together. I think we're good on enchantments. So let's see if we can find some nice solid ways of triggering heroic. So we're going Naya, so green, white. Advent of the Worm. That's actually a possibility to include in the sideboard because it's a really strong card, but it doesn't really fit in our list as of yet. Acolyte's Reward. No, don't think I'm gonna include that. Ajani's Presence is an interesting choice. It would give us a really quick way to target and protect creatures from single target removal, as well as the possibility of striving for a couple of creatures later on, and it'll trigger heroic that way as well. Not sure if we need it with Boros Charm in the list. It might be a nice thing to do rather than use Brave the Elements, but I do like Brave the Elements because it gives us a way to swing through creatures possibly. But I think now that I think about it, I think because we're playing not a mono white list or anything like that, and we are playing with enchantments, I don't really want them to fall off. So I think Johnny's Presence might actually be a little bit better in this list than Brave the Elements. Our creatures should be large enough that we don't really need to do an alpha strike through running through their creatures. We could probably just run through our opponent's creatures because they're just too large to deal with. So Johnny's Presence, I think, goes a little bit better with that. Again, this is how I do things, and we'll just refine later on. So Aspect the Hydra, not playing enough green for that. We already have Boros Charm. Burst of Strength, +2/+2 with heroic and target a creature and tap. I don't think that's really good enough. I think we can think of better things. Common Bond might be a possibility. There's another one from Journey to Nyx, I believe, that gives three 1/1 counters on separate creatures, but it's a little bit higher costing, I believe. And Common Bond, I think we're probably looking for about 2 or 3 creatures on board at all times and just growing those creatures into beatdown machines. So Common Bond is a definite possibility. Getting 2 heroic triggers off at once, essentially getting 2 1/1 counters on 2 creatures for 3 mana, is not a terrible deal. Again, we're just brainstorming right now. This is what I like doing. So what is that card called? Common Bond. So that is a definite possibility to include, and so we'll add that in there as well. Coordinated Assault is actually another solid one to possibly even just a sideboard. I think Coordinated Assault is good in the green-red monsters matchups where you're going to be doing a lot more creature battling and things like that. Same with Dauntless Onslaught. It's too bad we didn't have Battlefield Thaumaturge because it would make it so it's like 1 mana. But up to 2 target creatures get essentially +3/+3 if we're doing 2 heroic triggers. So that's not terrible. Instant speed is not bad. I think 3 mana is a little bit higher. I think I want a little bit more efficient instances and sorceries. Dia Seed is a definite includement in the sideboard. So I do like including maybe even 3 possibly, just because of how standard it is with this very low chance of not having any targets to hit with that card. Destructive Revelry, Divine Verdict, don't really need. Fall to the Hammer. Huh. It would give us a way to remove creatures. I'm not sure if it's good enough, though. Something to keep in mind, though, definitely. Fortify, don't need. Giant Growth is a very efficient pump spell. I think if we include... That's tough. I like Giant Growth because it's essentially a +4/+4 at instant speed. And it's very efficient. Because we're including... probably including Gore-Clan Rampager in these lists. And we already have Boros Charm for double strike. I think Giant Growth, similar to how it uses in Brave Naya, is a pretty nice thing to have. If we, maybe even maybe in the sideboard possibly. Reason is for that. Maybe I think if we want to bring it in to be a little bit more explosive in certain matchups, especially in like control where we want to one turn kill them as fast as possible, and we don't have to worry about creatures chump blocking, Giant Growth could be a possibility to bring in. God's Willing actually is a solid one. I think with that in mind, we could knock down a Johnny's Presence to 2 and include 2 God's Willing. I don't know if I want to play too many reactive spells like this. And if we already have Boros Charm and a Johnny's Presence, I think just 2 copies of God's Willing, especially for the Scry, I think is nice in these decks. Especially if we have the combo between like Gore-Clan Rampager and Boros Charm. Which reminds me, I think since we're mostly going to be using Gore-Clan Rampager as in combination for the pump, I don't think we need 4. In the off chance, we can still play it as a creature, and I think 3 is a good amount if it's an important card, but you just need to make room for other things. I think 3 is a good amount to have for certain cards. Heroes Reunion, don't need. Hold at Bay. Nah, I think Hold at Bay is just not good enough. Last Breath, I don't think we really need to worry about a lot of cards. Lightning Strike, we're not playing a burn. We're just going to be beating down with creatures. Martial Glory is a pretty interesting one. That'd be really good in certain matchups, I think, for creature-wise, but I think it's a little bit off balance. Mending Touch is another possibility as well for extra Wrath insurance, but I think we already have enough ways through red and white to protect our creatures. I don't really think we need Mending Touch. Mortals Are Door is a pretty decent, just a low cantrip type thing to cast to get some life back. And Heroic Trigger, Mortals Resolve, I'm not sure if we need that. We already have enough ways to protect our creatures. We have Mutant's Prey might be a nice one in the sideboard for green-red monsters matchup. Or any monster matchups, because our creatures are going to be quite large, and majority of them are going to have 1/1 counters on them already, thanks to heroic triggers. So Mutant's Prey might be a possibility, that's for sure. We'll keep that one in mind. Naturalize, I think I'd rather just play Unravel Aether if I want to remove enchantments and things like that. Nature's Panoply. I don't think we want that one. Phalanx Formation, I think, is that's tough. It gives us the ability to strive, so if we have two creatures on board, for 5 mana we could give them both double strike, but I think with Boros Charm and things like that, we already have enough ways of double striking our creatures. I think we just want to have a little bit more efficient ways of targeting them, I think. Ranger's Guile, again, we already have better ways to protect our creatures. This is tough. A lot of good pumps. Oh, here we go. Reap What Is Sown. So this is from Born of the Gods, and it allows us to target 3 creatures. So would this be better than the other one? I'm wondering. So Common Bond or Reap What Is Sown. They're both 3 mana. Reap What Is Sown gets to do 3 different target creatures. I think the difference between this and Common Bond is Common Bond, I think you can put both on one creature, which you can't with Reap What Is Sown. So, that's tough. I do like Reap What Is Sown. I think we are going to have around 3 creatures on the field at once. And I think dispersing our threats, especially if we have like cards like Borostrom to protect all of them from Wraths, I think it allows us to play a little bit more of that kind of strategy and have a little bit heavier board than like a hexproof board where they only have like 1 or 2 creatures. So I actually think Reap What Is Sown might be a little bit better. We'll see. We'll keep both in the list. Renounce the Guilds, don't really want that. Reprisal, it's another way for us to remove, but we're not too worried about that. We're looking only to remove specific creatures, and I think we already have like Selesnya Charm for really tough creatures and Banishing Light for planeswalkers and things like that. Savage, no, I don't think Savage Summoning is good. Savage Surge might not be terrible in a creature matchup. Already a Selesnya Charm. Satisan Tactics is actually another good one for a creature matchup. That's a definite possibility as well. It's actually pretty efficient too. Only 1 green mana to strive with it. And it pumps our creatures. If we have heroic guys, it gives essentially giving them +2/+2 till the end of turn, and it makes them a little bit tougher to fight creatures. I think that is a definite possibility to include in the sideboard. I like Satisan Tactics. I think it's in any creature heavy matchup, it's a good sideboard card if you're playing fairly large creatures. It also is another form of removal because it allows us to hit flying creatures like Stormbreath Dragon if we need to. But if we're playing a heavy white creature base, Stormbreath Dragon has protection from white, so maybe we have to include like Plummet or something like that. It's a possibility. Or if since we're going red, we can include like Mizzy Mortars or something like that. I think that's pretty good as it is. Solidarity of Heroes. Ooh, that might be a very nice one to have. Doubling the amount of 1/1 counters. That's tough though. It's a little bit risky because by itself, just for like 2 counters, it's not that great. You have to have probably, I would say, at least 2 counters already on your creatures to make a really good use out of this. It's not terrible. Like the strive cost is just 2, so for 4 mana, if we have like a card with already 2 1/1 counters on it, we get to target it, activate Heroic, which will make it into 3 1/1 counters. Doubling that in total will make it 6 1/1 counters. So that may be nice to have just as a 1 or 2 of. Again, after experimenting with my rug bounce deck, I do enjoy having random 1-ofs and 2-ofs. Well, I guess not random 1-of or 2-ofs. Using them as blow up potential cards is always a nice thing to have. Plus, we can use it in a variety of situations, I think. And it's not terrible. It's not one of the super expensive strive cards, that's for sure. I think that's pretty good. Titan Strength is another good one to go red. It's a very strong, if we want to go a little bit more offensive-wise, it's a very strong instant speed for 1. Plus the Scry is always nice as well. That's a possibility. Unravel, Aether, we have Banishing Light to get rid of enchantments, but I think having just an extra instant speed way of doing it is nice, because especially with so many decks running enchantment hate now, Banishing Light isn't as great as you would think. Everyone pretty much has enchantment hate in their sideboard, if not their main board. So don't really need War Leader's Helix, I don't think. Warrior's Lesson is actually not a bad one to have, especially since we have Unflinching Courage. The Trample would be nice to ensure that we can get some card draw, because I think with these heroic decks, the lack of card draw is pretty strong. Speaking of which, Johnny's Mentor of Heroes, I wonder if that's one that we should include. And if we go a little bit more, maybe mid-range, I don't know about mid-range, but play some heavier cards. If we can survive till then, a Johnny Mentor of Heroes would give us a way, because we are including enchantment creatures and enchantments in our deck. So a Johnny Mentor of Heroes might be not a terrible idea, as well as it does add counters to our creatures. Possibility. If anything, we probably wouldn't play more than 2. Just because it is a 5 costing card. And we generally probably want to be a little bit more aggressive with this deck. And just ensure that we have ways of protecting our creatures. But Warrior's Lesson is definitely a low costing card. 1 mana giving 2 of our creatures heroic triggers and possibly drawing cards off that. I think that's worth it to actually include, so we'll throw it in there. Warrior's Lesson. I'm still typing with one hand, so I apologize for that. And I apologize if my keyboard's a little bit loud. I am using a mechanical keyboard. There's a apostrophe at the end. Alright, Weapon Surge, don't really need that. Wear and Tear, we already have I'm not too worried about artifacts. We already have ways of getting rid of enchantments, and we already have Banishing Light in the list too, so... I think that should be good. Yeah, I think that should be good. So that's instances. I don't think sorcery-wise, I'm not really sure if there's anything specific that we need for that. Maybe like a couple of copies of Mizium Mortars. But I'm not sure if we want that. It might make the deck a little bit too slow. That's tough. Like I do enjoy having removal on my list, and cards like Blood Baron are going to be pretty problematic for us. Maybe just in the sideboard, I think. Yeah, because we're really only including Mizium Mortars, I think, for very specific threats, like Stormbreath Dragon, or because our Banishing Light doesn't hit that. So I think sideboard is a decent spot for it. Armed and Dangerous, we already have ways of double striking. I don't think we really need that. Flesh and Blood, not bad. It does make target heroic, and it gives us another source of removal. But I think we already have enough ways of one turn killing them as well. What else can we possibly add? I don't think that's too many for sorcery-wise. I think we're already pretty decent set up. I think with heroic, we really want to just have more instances and enchantments. I think this is what my deck's going to be looking like. I don't think there's very many sorcery spells that I actually want. Yeah, I think that should be good. Like Hunt the Hunter, I mean, it's good, especially in these types of decks, but I just don't think there's enough green. Like green or Jund monsters is really the only one. Hunter's Prowess, that's a interesting one. Maybe one of. It could be a pretty good blowout card. It's a little bit on the high end, but with our heroic creatures essentially giving +4/+4 and trample, as well as possibly just refilling our hand, might not be a bad one to do. Maybe even in the control matchup when we don't have to worry about I don't know, maybe not. It's a little bit too slow for control, I think. Yeah, that's tough. Might possibly bring it in as a 1 of or a 2 of. We'll see. We'll include it. I'm not sure if I like it more than Warrior's Lesson, but I think it has a little bit more blow up potential. So we'll try it as a 1 of. Again, a lot of it comes down to testing. So like I'm sharing with you guys my thought process, and I'm trying to talk about as much as I can about what I'm thinking of when I'm choosing these cards. So it gives you guys a better idea of things. But really, it'll come down to testing. So all I can really do is speculate. Oh, Launch the Fleet. That's one I definitely forgot to include. It's a really low costing strive, but it's nice to progress our board. And it's very, very easy to trigger heroic, essentially. Launch the Fleet is definitely an awesome card, and it's definitely one I want to experiment with as well. I think it should be good, though. Like, looking through this, I don't know if there's any other sorcery cards I would really include. Planar cleansing. Yes, let's destroy all of our non-land permanents. Revoke existence. Don't need that. We already have Deicide. Deicide. Whatever, however you want to pronounce it. Yeah, that doesn't seem like there's many other sorceries that I really need to include in this. Spite of Mogus, that'd be an interesting one. I'm not really sure if we're playing enough instances though, and sorceries to utilize it. I think that should be good. So here's where we're at. I think we already have a solid base. Now I'm going to stop this part, and like I mentioned in my update video, I'm going to split this up into parts just to ensure that doesn't go on too long. Half an hour is, I think, a good place to stop for these videos. So this will do it for non-creature spells. Next part of the series, I will be going through the creatures, and we'll go through that. Because we do need more creatures than just Hero of Iroas and Eidolon of Countless Battles and Gorklan. So grabbing more creatures is where we're going to start at next time. So thank you guys for watching this part. Definitely let me know what you guys think of it so far, and I'll talk to you guys in the next part. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later.